Here's another unknown fact about trauma and how you can heal it. So when trauma occurs, the first thing that's usually affected directly in the body is the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is essentially one of the main cranial nerves that connects all of your main organs all the way up into your brain. And in recent research in modern science, they've discovered that there's actually a huge correlation between a dysregulated vagus nerve and mental health illnesses and conditions. So it's very common that you'll find people with severe anxiety, people with depression, even people with bipolar and other mental health issues will have an affected and dysregulated vagus nerve in some way. Now, for me, I had different variations and different expressions of my vagus nerve and how it ruptured from the assault and harassment that I recently experienced in my later years in life. I had severe anxiety, I had depression, and it was pretty much an expression of undisclosed PTSD, which then turned into CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I spent the last 10 years healing it through holistic and alternative but Eastern means, as well as studying modern interventions and how to heal this thing that happened to me since I was 14 years old. So I've lived with it, I've been with it, I know what it's like, and I've met the deepest suffering known to man that could possibly be created by a psychological disease or disorder that affects the physiology in such a way where I was completely bedridden for the first 2 years. I was catatonic. In the last 5 years since it's happened, I have been slowly trying to regulate and get my physiological functioning back where I can move completely without severe pain. And the vagus nerve dysregulation in my body created a situation where I have been unable to exercise or move normally as a dancer and someone who likes to stay fit for the last 5 and a bit years. So anyway, back to the vagus nerve and healing trauma. Now that there's so much more modern science around the intercorrelation between these two aspects, it is super important that we realize and recognize that in order to actually heal psychological trauma and mental health illness, we need to look at the state of the vagus nerve and how dysregulated it is. And then look at the different ways in which we can regulate the vagus nerve depending on the symptoms we're experiencing. So for experiencing anxiety, that means we are hyper-aroused in our nervous system and we need to down-regulate our nervous system to feel safe and secure. If we're experiencing depression, we need to up-regulate our nervous system so we don't feel so low and drab. That's why exercising is a great remedy and tool for people who are experiencing depression. And meditation and slow breath work and slow movement like yoga is great for people who experience anxiety. Now, if you're experiencing complex PTSD or anything to do with trauma that is more complex in nature, and you might be experiencing both states of dysregulation on the hyper and the hypo arousal side, you're going to have to look at different ways that are going to serve you, pertaining exactly to you and your unique needs, because there is no one size fits all, especially when we're dealing with healing trauma. But ultimately, it's super important to understand that the health of your gut, your sexual organs, your cervix, which is where the vagus nerve connects from within a woman as well. The health of these different organs really affects the nature and reality of your mental health, not just because of the direct effects from the organs and how that stimulates the biochemistry, but also pertains to the vagus nerve connection. And one other thing that's really great for re-stimulating and regulating the vagus nerve too is body work. So honey, go get that massage, baby. I know you need it.